2021. So you can go and listen to her episode again. And also Jenny has many YouTube videos going through these kinds of processes. There's many others out there, so just use your intuition to find someone that can help you with that process. So we're going to now move to the last question, and this one comes from Eloise from California, and she's asking, what part does sex play in the scheme of spirituality? Should I even ask this? Many are embarrassed to even talk about it in a spiritual way. Eloise, you're very perceptive because this is for many a taboo subject. But we want to bring you the answers from Lee and from Kryon.
We want to bring you the answers from us too. I mean, this is something that we've selected today because of our guest. And we're going to deal today with a guest who was one of the originators of the work in Tantra Yoga. So this is something that we want to let's just say it right out in the open. First of all, we are a very Puritan society, more so than most on the planet. And yet, in that we are completely and totally, according to Kryon, misinformed on what some people think about sex and what it really is and what it means and how it would be played into spirituality because of what has happened. I have even heard those say, in all honesty, that sex is the original sin, quote unquote. It isn't. That is scripturally is separation from God. It was talked about with St. Augustine's writing. But that is where it's been taken so much. And we get these big mixed messages coming from everyone. Depending upon what your parents thought about it and what they taught you, what your church says about it, what they taught you, movies and what you think they're saying. For so many, it's just dirty stuff. And you don't talk about it. And especially you wouldn't talk about it on a program like this. We're misinformed. What if it was completely and totally different? What I want to do is give you a quote. And it's a quote that I have presented in one of my books. It's on the internet and from a man named Butch Hancock. And after that, I would like Monica to actually give you some information from what Kryon has said about it. Let me just preface this. What Kryon has said is that the coming together in this way, intimately, between two old souls of a spiritual nature is one of the most precious and most beautiful things that humans can experience. If done correctly, not dirty, not awful, and it's not something you ever have to be ashamed of. That's what Kryon has said. I hope this is good news to you because it isn't dirty. Now, here is Butch Hancock's quotation. He's from Texas. All right, ready? Quote, "Life in Lubbock, Texas taught me two things. Number one, that God loves you and you're going to burn in hell. Number two, the other is that sex is the most awful, filthy thing on earth, and you should save it for someone you love." If that's not a mixed message.
I'm sorry, that always cracks me up.
It is an incredible mixed message, but indeed, that's what we're taught.
Exactly.
So I'll throw it to you here. Right.
Well, back to your statement of how some claim it's the original sin. I want to give another perspective on that because when I wrote The Women of Lemuria, I was privileged to be able to ask Kryon additional questions to the information that came through from the channeled messages. One of the questions I was asking was about the seeding that happened when the female Pleiadians came. Here is part of the answer to that question that Kryon gave. Kryon said, "The star mothers who came to Earth did not have mates on their planets, and they were all volunteers. More than volunteers, they were selected out of thousands who wanted to come here. How does that make you feel? Was there love or attachment with the human males who were their mates on Earth? What do you think? Have you studied the principles of the Kundalini? Have you actually looked into the system whereby the mating process is more than mechanical. It was a sacred act and beautiful. And yes, there was love. And in addition to that beautiful quote we just heard from Kryon, in a channel given at the Lemurian Sisterhood in Kansas, Missouri, on August 8, 2020, Kryon stated that impregnation came with a ceremony and was beautiful and joyful, and both of them cried. I want you to think about that. It's about as far as from what happens today as you can make it. This is what an ascended planet looks like, because they know what's happening and they celebrate. You don't do that today. So here is Kryon's instructions to us about the beautiful sacred act of coming together and coupling. So with that, let us have a brief meditation before a channel from Kryon. And with this, I invite you to close your eyes, and in this space, let us acknowledge that within us, within our DNA, we have a spark of the original creation of how humans were created on this planet. Our lineage comes from the stars, and with it, it carries the energy of sacred union of female and male, a coming together that created a spark of light with a seed that grew into a divine human. Within your DNA lies that original seed. And just acknowledge the beauty of those female Pleiadians coming to our planet, carrying with them the seeds of creation. You have been birthed from a divine union. Every human on the planet carries this seed of creation within them. And so we just want to acknowledge the sacredness of our own existence. And we invite the beautiful sacred messages from Kryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. This is the fourth channel of the month in a series of 4 that we talked about and told you. It's a very common theme that would segment now a subject into 4 sections or parts and then present them later in an audio fashion where they could be listened to all at once. Short channels that become one longer one about one subject. And that's the point. Did you ever wonder, and I'll say it again, truly what the purpose was on the planet? And you might think, well, it's something very high and magnificent. It is indeed, but not what you think. If you wanted to know what the actual purpose of a human being, old soul, like watching this program, is today, what is the purpose? It's to mirror the face of God as much as you can while you walk the planet. How about that? And you might say, well, there's got to be more. Isn't that enough? You might say. No matter what your true purpose is that you think, a task perhaps, something you have to do perhaps, and that is how humans think. Go ahead and assign something to do, but do it while mirroring the face of God. And we've given you some examples of ordinary energies that are difficult on the planet. We talked about the difficulty of walking with family. And we told you that a blood family or a chosen family is different from simply friends, because these actually have energy because you've chosen them before you got here. You all did. Now, this is a very, very difficult thing for many of you to grasp. And you would say, indeed, as I've said every time, I would never have chosen that. That's awful. Not that person to be my mom or my dad or my mate. Something went wrong with that one. No, it didn't. It was for your education. It's like having a teacher in school you didn't quite like, that perhaps rubbed you the wrong way, but you learned something. So there are good reasons why sometimes old souls and new souls come together in a family to teach each other things. And sometimes it's the child who teaches the parent. Indeed, that might be the case for those of you who are here. We talked about the difficulty in the workplace. We talked about other things that are ordinary things that an old soul, a light worker, must get through. We also talked about the principle, and I'll just say it again, that there is a tendency when you're feeling an awakening and a precious new energy coming into your life, there is a tendency to withdraw from the planet and go live in a section of the planet or a place in your city where you can be alone. Or perhaps you can choose your friends and live perhaps in a commune of some sort, so you don't have to work with the rest of the public, which perhaps you feel is a little darker than you are. You've heard this so many times. And history shows that that's exactly what you do. For there are so many examples of spiritual people trying to get away and become in their own conclave so that they don't have to be with the others. By the way, that doesn't often work. It also explains those who are shaman, who go and live outside the village, just in order to be separate and to then continue to absorb that spirituality, which they believed in those old days, by the way, that you had to be alone to have, because you got an absorption rate of the ones you were with. Something today we've even talked about in the questions and answers. You don't have to worry about absorbing negative energy anymore. Old soul, I'll say it again, you have a bubble of light. And nothing gets through it. Not if you've given intent for this. That's why you're here. But today we're going to talk about one that is even more difficult. Because as this energy of this planet starts to increase and show light, there's a lot of darkness which also shows. You know that. The metaphor is very clear. As you turn on the light in some place that has never had light, suddenly the dirt shows. More than the dirt. There are things lurking, perhaps, in the shadows. That's a metaphor. But even that which has happened in your home is that way. And so this metaphor is happening today with the energy around you. And suddenly you're seeing the duality start to increase between dark and light with humanity in your society. And you're seeing it. Suddenly you're starting to see that which is darker and lower energy as something you don't want any part of. And yet it's built into your society. And you can't escape it. What do? Kryon, what are you talking about? It's all around you. It's all around you. opinions for this society, for instance, for America. Has there ever been a greater division between parties that are political than now? And in that, do you fight now and you didn't before? Does it separate families and it didn't before? And the answer is yes. Are there spiritual issues? That is to say, splits between those of spiritual systems and doctrines and that kind of a thing that are so grand that you won't even eat dinner with somebody who doesn't believe what you believe? And the answer is yes. You name it. And there are things that are showing up that never showed up before. The difference between races and what's going on, finally, that might answer some questions and bring solutions so that you can intermingle finally in a way that is kinder. Now, I just gave you a word. I'll tell you this. You are not going to escape these divisions, dear ones. You will not escape them. Politically, no matter what you believe, there's somebody else that's going to believe the other way, and they will be light workers. Are you aware of this? There are those who believe that every single old soul and light worker who watches a program like this and is attracted to channel will be one party, your political party, and none of the others would ever be here. And the answer is you're wrong. It's 50-50, just like it is on the planet. In other words, all of you old souls and all of you light workers, you have the same attributes as everyone else. Some of you are interested in one party, some of the other. Now, how are you going to work that when today there is so much animosity between them? Here is the operative word: kindness. Can you have the face of the Creator and meet with somebody who also is spiritual, and you know that they are very actively part of another political party that you do not agree with? Can you come together and decide you won't discuss it because you don't agree, but you love each other? Is that a little too mature? I'll tell you this, it's way too mature for most humans who are involved in this division at the moment. But the light worker on the planet, the old soul, is the way shower. And the more you can do this in kindness, the more others will see it. And they may not be fast to emulate it, but they'll know it's possible. And right now, there are those who don't think it's possible. There are Congress people who don't think it's possible any longer. There are some who will never run for Congress again because they're tired of it and the country has changed too greatly. They say it's wounded. How would you like to be a healer? An energy healer, politically. Let me state it again. All of you will have to go through these kinds of divisions. You have opinions in your society. You'll have opinions about what to do about what's going on between the races. And they may not be the same opinions as the ones that you are with and love. What is the operative word? Kindness. Dear ones, you can be kind to each other. And you can agree that the opinions are different. But you can come together and say, we love this country, the situation, we love each other, we love the planet enough so that we can disagree about things and still come together with kindness. That's the operative word. Easier said than done. That is why you're called a light worker. These are the answers, truly the answers. It will not then get you to convert someone else to your idea. Instead, love conquers all. Dear ones, you can have a situation where you can be divided in an opinion on your society and still be very much in love. and very kind. That is the new human being, and that's the new normal. You've heard the word, that's the spiritual new normal. Can you do it? An old soul can. You know how. You do. Think on these things and think of that which is kind to your neighbor, to your family, to those at work. And it'll change your life and heal your body. Because anxiety is a killer, and you know it. I am Kryon, continuing to be in love with humanity. And so it is.
From this beautiful space that we have been in, we're going to gently move into the next section of our program. And so we just want to allow a little time for you to make those shifts and adjustments, bringing your awareness back into your body, bringing your attention back into this present now moment. And we are delighted to be welcoming our next guest, who is Charles Mure. And Charles, are you there?
I'm here.
Wonderful.
Here and happy to be here.
Oh, we are so happy to have you with us. So Lee, you want to tell everyone about Charles?
I would love to. So Charles Mure is considered the originator and pioneer of modern Tantra movement in the United States. Now, Charles is going to tell you a little more about that and some of the differences between the word Tantra and Tantra Yoga. For decades, Charles has dedicated himself to expanding his students' capacity to consistently feel energy, love, intimacy, and pleasure. His group classes, instructional materials, and teacher training programs give people practical tools which lead them to experience the reality of the energy body.
Now, through practice and training, students learn the power of a conscious connection to their own energy body, which enhances the ability to join energy with others. And in 1978, he originated the Tantra, the art of conscious loving format, sacred spot massage, and many other inventive experiential exercises, which have become the cornerstones in the curriculum of most Tantra educators.
He's written 3 books, released 5 DVDs, produced numerous educational CDs on Tantra, the art of conscious loving. Every time we have on the show a pioneer, it's interesting to me because that means that back in the 70s, he was dealing perhaps with things that people either didn't understand or perhaps criticized or didn't want any part of. And yet today, there's probably a tremendous amount of those who are teaching what he started. And so, Charles, welcome to the show. And I'm going to ask the question right away. How did you get into this? Tell us about your life and your path.
The short form. I was riding a subway train one day, and when I get in, I saw a book, and I went over, picked up the book, and it was a book on yoga, and it fascinated me. So I went right home and tried it and threw my back out, and that got me to a chiropractor, and that got me to Yoga for Health, the first television show on Hatha Yoga, syndicated in some 60 cities. And this is way back. This is in the 60s. My first class, he came up to me and said, "My boy, yoga needs teachers, especially male teachers. And I would like you to consider to train with me to be a teacher. Well, I did, and I ran his 3-state franchise in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Next step, next bit of luck, I tried to get on a subway train with a $10 bill. And in those days, they only cast $5 bills. So he kept rejecting my money and then said, if you don't get out of my line, I'm going to call a cop. And I remembered there's a newspaper stand upstairs. I'll go get a newspaper and cash my money. The news guy looked at the $10 bill and said, you think I'm cashing that $10 bill for a lousy 15-cent newspaper? And I was shocked. And I looked up to the heavens, and there was a sign, lottery tickets for sale. So I bought 2 50-cent tickets, and I won first prize 2 weeks later. And that sent me west to California and then to Hawaii. And my students, I taught meditation, hatha yoga, raja yoga, karma yoga, dietary considerations. But my students kept stuffing the box for it. They wanted to know about Tantra yoga because the rumors had got out that Charles did this thing. And I answered the questions truthfully. I gave my first talk thinking I'd be tar and feathered at the end of it. You know, when I started looking for a yoga teacher, I went to the yellow pages and there was Dannon yogurt back in 1966. There were no yoga teachers. Now there's that many pages. Mm-hmm. So I was ahead of my time there, and I started teaching Tantra, just putting together what I knew and what I was learning. And I did my first course. It sold out, and it kept selling out to the point where I decided I'm leaving California, giving my yoga schools to a couple of my advanced teachers. I'm going to start over in Hawaii teaching Tantra yoga. Mm-hmm. And I was a complete flop. I didn't know how to market this new subject. But there was one couple who ran a church, and they said, we want you to come to the Big Island and teach our congregation about how to love each other better. So, you know, Tantra yoga is a yoga. And even today, there are 2 schools that will fight each other. When they see Tantra yoga, the Tantra people will say, that was for back then. And the straight, by the book, ancient Tantra yogis say, this is just glorified sex. And a lot of Tantra has become that. It's a wonderful way to learn how to change sex into sexual love. And one does this by bringing all of one's consciousness, all of one's love, and all of one's growing skills in the art of love. To be a master in the art of moving stuck energy in your partner's body, knowing where energy is stuck in your chakra system and knowing ways to move it, and then learning ways to bring the 2 energies into oneness. That's the yoga part of it. And the goal of Tantra yoga is oneness, is divine union, and is enlightenment. A lot of modern day Tantra is more about better orgasms, which you get. It's part of the roadmap when you're doing Tantra yoga correctly. your orgasms become easier and much more powerful and joyful sounds. And they believe